The History of the Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire by Edward Gibbon. Host, picture this. It's 1764, and you're a young man sitting among the ruins of ancient Rome. The setting sun bathes the crumbling stones in gold and purple light. Barefoot monks are singing evening prayers in what used to be Jupiter's temple. You're surrounded by the ghost of history's greatest empire, now silent and slowly being reclaimed by wild vines and time itself. Right there, in that exact moment, a young Englishman named Edward Gibbon had an idea that would consume the next 20 years of his life. He decided to write the story of how Rome fell. What an audacious dream! The book he created, The History of the Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire, became far more than a history book. It's one of the most celebrated works of literature ever written, and here's what makes it special. Gibbon doesn't just recite facts at you. He invites you to sit beside him and watch the slow, majestic, heartbreaking sunset of an entire civilization. Gibbon wasn't your typical academic historian. He was what you'd call a true amateur, in the beautiful original sense of that word, a lover. He fell head over heels for his subject. No university forced him. No political party funded him. He was driven by pure, burning curiosity to answer one of history's most haunting questions. How does something so powerful, so magnificent, so seemingly eternal, just fall apart? Over the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through the essence of his answer. Think of this not as a dry summary, but as an invitation to one of the greatest adventures in all of literature. We're about to travel through 13 centuries together, from Rome's golden age of peace to the desperate final moments of its last emperor. And here's my promise. By the time we're done, you won't just understand why Rome fell. You'll also see a reflection of our own world staring back at you. Rome's story is, in so many ways, our story. It's a timeless exploration of power, corruption, clashing beliefs, and the invisible forces that can bring even giants to their knees. This is more than history. It's a journey into the soul of civilization itself. So get comfortable, and let's dive in. To understand how something falls, you first need to see it at its peak. In the 2nd century after Christ, during what's called the Age of the Antonines, the Roman Empire was thriving. It stretched from the foggy hills of Britain to the sun-baked deserts of Syria, from the Rhine and Danube rivers down to the Nile in Egypt. As Gibbon puts it, this was the fairest part of the earth and the most civilized portion of humanity. Law, culture, and a common language had woven hundreds of different peoples into one vast community. This world ran on a brilliant idea. The emperor held absolute power, but he was supposed to act like the republic still existed. He wasn't a king. He was the first citizen, ruling with the Senate's blessing. For more than 80 years, under wise emperors like Trajan, Hadrian, and Marcus Aurelius, this system worked beautifully. It was a golden age. The legendary Roman legions weren't conquering anymore. They were guarding the borders, keeping the peace. The emperors had decided the empire was already as large as it could reasonably govern. But here's the thing about golden ages. They plant the seeds of their own destruction. The long peace, Gibbon argues, became a slow poison. Military discipline softened. The genius and courage that built the empire started to fade. The provinces grew comfortable, defended by professional soldiers they'd never meet. People started caring less about public life and more about their private comforts. A dangerous apathy crept into the empire's heart. Then came the turning point. When the philosopher-emperor Marcus Aurelius died, his son Commodus took over. And Commodus was everything his father wasn't. He was vain, cruel, weak. He had zero interest in actually governing. What he loved was the arena. He literally fought as a gladiator, humiliating himself and the empire. He ruled through paranoia and favorites, executing senators on a whim. His 13-year reign was a spectacle of blood and excess. When Commodus was finally murdered, there was brief relief, but that relief opened a terrible door. The Praetorian Guards, the elite soldiers who protected Rome itself, actually auctioned off the throne to the highest bidder. Yes, you read that right. They sold the empire. This shameful act revealed a fatal weakness. Civilian authority had become powerless against military might. The armies stationed across the empire refused to accept this. Their generals declared war, not just on the murderers, but on each other. This was the beginning of the unraveling. The civil wars that followed revealed a deeper sickness. The old idea of the republic, that the emperor served the people, was dying. It was being replaced by naked military rule, where soldiers' wishes became the only law that mattered. A tough general from Africa, named Septimius Severus, eventually won. He restored order, but it was a new, harsher kind of order. He had no patience for the Senate. He ruled through pure military power, and famously told his sons, "Enrich the soldiers and despise everyone else." This became the new operating principle of Rome. He paid the legions better, let discipline slip, and taught them to recognize their own power. What followed was catastrophic. The next century was chaos. Emperors rose and fell at dizzying speed, usually murdered by the same soldiers who'd put them on the throne. Civil war became the norm. During this crisis of the 3rd century, the empire nearly collapsed completely. Barbarian tribes, Goths, Franks, Alemanni, poured across undefended borders while Roman armies fought each other. Gaul was overrun. The Goths raided cities throughout Asia Minor and Greece. At one point, the empire literally split into 3 separate pieces. Then came a series of remarkable soldier emperors from Illyricum, men like Claudius Gothicus, Aurelian, and Probus. They were warriors of the old Roman type, disciplined, tireless, courageous. Aurelian, in just 5 years, defeated the Goths, expelled invaders from Italy, and reunited the shattered empire. But even he recognized that Rome itself was no longer safe. He built the massive walls that still surround the city today, a powerful symbol. The empire was now playing defense. These military strongmen saved the empire, but they couldn't restore its soul. The man who would reshape it entirely was Diocletian. Diocletian was another soldier of humble origins. He understood that the empire was too vast, too troubled for one man to rule, so he divided it. He created the Tetrarchy, 4 rulers, 2 senior emperors, and 2 junior partners. He hoped this would ensure smooth succession and put an emperor on every threatened frontier. Diocletian also stripped away the last pretense of the old republic. He wasn't the first citizen anymore. He was the dominus, the lord. He adopted Persian court ceremonies, complete with purple robes, diadems, and people prostrating before him. He split civil and military power to prevent anyone from getting too strong. His reforms were brutally effective. They imposed rigid order, but at tremendous cost. Taxes became crushing. Society became stratified. Many professions became hereditary by law. The empire was saved, but it had been transformed into a gilded cage. And in the midst of this oppressive new order, one of history's most profound revolutions reached its tipping point. For 3 centuries, a new religion had been quietly spreading, Christianity. It started as an obscure Jewish sect, but its message had extraordinary power. Salvation and eternal life, offered to everyone, slave or free, Roman or barbarian. Christians were different, though. Their devotion was exclusive. While a Roman might honor Jupiter, Isis, and a dozen local gods without conflict, Christians declared all other gods were demons. This set them apart. They seemed like atheists, haters of society. Their secret meetings bred suspicion. They faced persecution, but it was often sporadic and local. Sometimes it exploded into empire-wide campaigns, like under Nero, who blamed them for Rome's Great Fire, or Diocletian, who saw the church as a state within a state. But persecution only made them stronger. As one of them said, the blood of martyrs was the seed of the church. Their belief in an afterlife made them fearless before death, and their organized community, bishops, charity networks, supported them through every trial. Diocletian's final persecution was a furious attempt to eradicate them. It failed. Just years later, everything reversed because of one man, Constantine. Constantine wasn't the saint the church later portrayed. He was ambitious, ruthless, a soldier to his core. As he marched to fight his rival Maxentius for control of Rome, legend says he saw a vision, a cross in the sky with the words, "By this sign, conquer." He ordered the Christian symbol painted on his soldiers' shields. He won the decisive battle of the Milvian Bridge. Maxentius drowned in the Tiber. From that moment, Constantine became Christianity's champion. The Edict of Milan granted religious tolerance, but he showered the church with favor. He built magnificent basilicas, gave clergy special privileges, and presided over their councils. Then he defeated his last rival and became sole master of the empire. He moved the capital from Rome to a new city on the Bosphorus, Constantinople, a Christian capital, free from pagan temples and traditions. But Constantine's conversion didn't save Rome. Gibbon argues it may have hastened the decline. The new faith, focused on the afterlife, discouraged active civic virtue. The clergy preached patience and submission. Wealth flowed to churches and monasteries. The emperors became more concerned with theological disputes, like the great controversy over Christ's nature, than military strategy. After Constantine died, the empire was divided among his 3 weak sons, who soon turned on each other. The family was consumed by bloody massacres until only one heir remained, Julian, known to history as Julian the Apostate. Raised Christian, he secretly converted back to paganism. As emperor, he tried everything to undermine Christianity and restore the old gods. He even tried to rebuild the Jewish temple in Jerusalem, a project that, according to accounts, was stopped by miraculous fiery eruptions from the ground. But his reign was short. He died in battle against Persia, and with him died the dream of pagan restoration. The final blow to the Western Empire came from an unexpected direction, the Huns. In the late 4th century, this nomadic people of legendary ferocity burst out of the eastern steppes, driving everyone before them. The Goths, a powerful Germanic nation on the Danube, were terrified. An entire people, hundreds of thousands strong, appeared at the Roman frontier begging for refuge. Emperor Valens made a fateful decision. He let them in, but his corrupt officials then abused and starved them. They sold the Goths dog meat at outrageous prices and took their children as slaves in exchange for bread. Pushed to the breaking point, the Goths rebelled. Valens marched against them. At the Battle of Hadrianople in 378, the Roman army was annihilated. The emperor himself was killed. This wound would never heal. The Goths, now an independent nation within the empire, ravaged the provinces. Emperor Theodosius managed to pacify them, not by defeating them, but by settling them as allies, foederati, barbarian soldiers serving Rome under their own chiefs. It was a dangerous compromise. The Roman army was now filled with Germans, Goths, and Franks. The masters of the world had forgotten how to defend themselves. The final act came in the next generation. After Theodosius died, the empire was permanently split between his 2 incompetent sons. Honorius in the west cared more about his pet chickens than his people. He abandoned Rome and hid in the fortress city of Ravenna. When Britain revolted and Gaul and Spain were lost, Italy's defense fell to one man, Stilicho, a Vandal general serving Rome. He was brilliant, defeating the Gothic king Alaric multiple times and repelling massive invasions. But Honorius's court, poisoned by jealousy, grew suspicious. Stilicho, the only man who could save Rome, was accused of treason and executed. With him gone, the road to Rome lay open. In 410, Alaric and his Goths marched into Italy and besieged the ancient capital. For the first time in 800 years, an enemy stood at the gates. The city, weakened by famine and plague, was betrayed. The gates opened. The Goths poured in. The sack of Rome wasn't total destruction, but it was a psychological earthquake that shook the world. The Eternal City had fallen. The Western Empire's last half-century was a slow, agonizing death. Real power belonged to barbarian generals like Aetius, who famously defeated Attila the Hun at Chalons. But emperors were puppets, a parade of pathetic shadows. The Vandals crossed from Spain into Africa, Rome's breadbasket, and conquered it. From Carthage, they built a fleet and sacked Rome again in 455, far more destructively than the Goths had. Finally, in 476, the last act played out. Barbarian mercenaries in Italy demanded land, a third of Italian estates. When refused, their leader Odoacer simply revolted. He deposed the last Western emperor, a boy ironically named Romulus Augustulus, Little Augustus. Odoacer didn't bother creating a new puppet. He just sent the imperial regalia to Constantinople and declared the West didn't need its own emperor anymore. And that was it. No great final battle, no dramatic last stand. The Roman Empire in the West just ended. It didn't fall with thunder. It faded with a whisper. So what do we take from this massive, sprawling story that covers 1,000 years and the entire known world? Here's the magic of Gibbon. He shows us this wasn't fate or divine will. It was people. People driven by the same things that drive us today: ambition, fear, greed, love, and the search for meaning. The first powerful lesson is about the fragility of order. The Roman peace seems so solid in hindsight. For centuries, it provided law, trade, and security for millions. But it rested on a delicate balance between civil and military power, between center and provinces, between emperor and the idea of republic. When that balance broke, it didn't just collapse, it corroded from the inside. Military discipline decayed. Government cared more about survival than serving the public. Crushing taxes destroyed the prosperity they were meant to protect. These aren't ancient problems, they're timeless warnings. Civilization isn't a fortress, it's a garden. It must be constantly tended, or disorder will reclaim it. The second great theme is the unpredictable power of ideas. Gibbon famously called Rome's fall the triumph of barbarism and religion. He saw Christianity not as salvation, but as a force that weakened the empire. In his view, it turned people's minds away from civic duty, toward pursuing a heavenly kingdom. It replaced the active virtues of a Roman citizen with the passive virtues of a monk. You don't have to agree with him. Many argue Christianity provided the glue that held Europe together after the empire fell. But what's undeniable is that a new idea, born in an obscure corner of Judea, completely remade the world. It proves that the most powerful force in history isn't an army or an emperor. It's a belief. Beliefs can build new worlds and tear old ones down. So what can you, standing at the threshold of your own adult life, take from this ancient story? First, systems matter more than goals. The Romans were brilliant at setting goals. Conquer a province, win a war. But they failed when they neglected the systems that supported those goals: justice, discipline, civic virtue. It's a powerful lesson for your life. It's not enough to want success. You must build the daily habits and systems that make success almost inevitable. Second, become a student of human nature. Gibbon's history is a masterclass in what drives people. He shows emperors enslaved by their passions and generals who mastered theirs. He shows how vanity destroys wise men and how fear makes fools dangerous. As you navigate relationships in your future career, understanding timeless patterns of human behavior will be one of your greatest assets. Read history, read biography, observe the world, see the patterns. Finally, don't take your world for granted. Romans believed their empire was eternal. They couldn't imagine a world without it. Then it was gone. We also live in a complex world that seems permanent. But Rome's story is a humbling reminder: nothing lasts forever. Everything we value, freedom, security, knowledge, art, is the product of generations of effort, and it can vanish far more easily than it was built. The best way to honor the past is to take responsibility for the future. That was The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire by Edward Gibbon. We've covered the highlights today, but I'll be honest. A summary can only take you so far. The real magic, the true wisdom of this masterpiece, happens when you read it yourself. It's in those quiet moments when a particular story or phrase from Gibbon's magnificent prose hits you in an unexpected way. This overview is designed to help you decide if this monumental work is worth your time. If anything we've talked about today has sparked your curiosity or resonated with you, I urge you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning history. It's an experience that can genuinely change how you see the world and your place in it. A link to the book is in the description. Also, if you found this journey valuable, please show your support by hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel. That way, you won't miss our next exploration into another life-changing book from the billionaire's bookshelf. Let's keep learning and growing together. Thank you for listening.